the US peace proposal to end the Russia-Ukraine war. Now, Vladimir Putin has backed Washington's proposals, adding that it can form the basis of a final peace settlement. Now, Ukraine is to put forward its own peace plan, but there isn't much time, as Donald Trump now says that he believes the deadline to agree his deal should be next Thursday. Now, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskiy has issued one of his starkest warnings yet, saying that the country is facing one of the most difficult moments in its history. In a strongly worded address, Zelenskiy said that Ukraine is under immense pressure and may soon confront a hard choice. He also said that the country could face either what he called the loss of dignity or the risk of losing a key partner. So basically referring to the US here. Now, Zelensky also referred to the growing tension over a US peace proposal for ending the war in Ukraine and warned that Ukraine could face a very difficult winter if diplomatic efforts falter this time again. Let's listen in.
Зараз один з найважчих моментів нашої історії. Зараз тиск на Україну один з найважчих. Зараз Україна може опинитися перед дуже складним вибором. Або втрата гідності, або ризик втрати ключового партнера. Або складні 28 пунктів, або вкрай важка зима. Найважча та подальші ризики.
This comes as the US under President Donald Trump has now drafted a peace plan that is now being studied by Kyiv, Moscow and several European governments. Now, according to reports, the plan would allow Russia to keep control of large parts of Ukrainian territory that it currently holds. And at the same time, it also proposes that some steps Moscow would find difficult to accept, including withdrawing from certain other territories. Now, according to reports, Washington has also warned that the US intelligence sharing and weapon supplies could be cut if Ukraine refuses to accept this framework. Meanwhile, UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer said that Ukraine must be allowed to determine its own future.
Well, I've just had a call with President Zelenskiy alongside President Macron and Chancellor Merz. And that was an opportunity for us to express again our support for Ukraine and the principle that's very important, which is all matters to do with Ukraine must be determined ultimately by Ukraine. Now, we all want a just and lasting peace. That's what the President of America wants. That's what we all want. And so we need to work from where we are to that end. But the principle that Ukraine must determine its future under its sovereignty is a fundamental principle. Well, it reinforced in me that basic principle that we have to work from where we are to the just and lasting peace. I know that's what President Trump wants, and he's been working to that end, but we must reiterate the principle that matters about Ukraine must be determined by Ukraine.
Now, the European Union also said that its support for Kyiv will continue. EU iterated that Ukraine can count on the bloc, calling Russia's invasion an attack on the principles of the UN Charter.
Children and my wife, she First Lady of Ukraine.
Slowly but surely the figures are showing that the sanctions are biting. And why not in one go? Because the sanctions often also reply to the circumventions of loopholes. So you put a sanction, there appears a loophole, you close the loophole, etc. It's a process that is ongoing, and the pressure on Russia here is ongoing. We will continue to support Ukraine, as we've done before. Ukraine can count on us, because this is not only an aggression against Ukraine, but it is an aggression against the principles of the UN Charter. It's on European soil, and therefore we will support Ukraine for as long as it takes.
Now, viewers, the diplomatic pressure is building as world leaders gather at the G20 summit in South Africa, and Ukraine braces for a difficult and potentially decisive week ahead. Now, meanwhile, the US has threatened to cut intelligence sharing and weapon supplies for Ukraine to press it into agreeing a framework of a US brokered peace deal. This is according to the two people familiar with the matter. Now, President Zelenskiy warned that Ukraine risked losing its dignity and freedom over the US peace plan that endorses that key Russian demands, a proposal that Donald Trump said Kyiv should accept within a week. Take a look at this report.
Національний український інтерес має бути врахований.
President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Friday that Ukraine faced losing its dignity and freedom or the support of the United States over its 28-point peace plan. The U.S. plan endorses key Russian demands, and President Donald Trump told Fox News Radio that Ukraine should agree to it by Thursday.
Now is one of the most difficult moments in our history. Now the pressure on Ukraine is one of the most difficult. Now Ukraine may find itself facing a very difficult choice. Either the loss of dignity or the risk of losing a key partner. Either the difficult 28 points or an extremely difficult winter, the most difficult and further risks.
Two sources who spoke to Reuters on the condition of anonymity said the U.S. threatened to cut off intelligence sharing and weapons supplies for Ukraine if it does not accept the deal. A senior U.S. official later said it was not accurate to say the U.S. threatened to withhold intelligence. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Meanwhile, Zelensky spoke to European leaders who continue to back him strongly. Here's EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas.
We are supportive of any plan that brings about just and lasting peace. As for the peace plan we understand that President Zelensky has been presented with, we have always said that any peace plan to work, it has to be with Ukraine and with the Europeans on board.
Three sources later told Reuters that Ukraine was working on a counter-proposal to the 28-point plan with Britain, France, and Germany. Yaroslava Barbieri, a research fellow with the Ukraine Forum at Chatham House, called the current proposal a non-starter.
First of all, the idea that Ukraine would have to concede territory that Russia currently doesn't hold, particularly in the Donetsk region, is unacceptable, is really a non-starter. And it's important to remind audiences of the fact that Russia has not been able to occupy the entirety of the Donbass region, losing thousands of people for over 10 years now.
As part of the arrangement, sanctions against Russia would be gradually lifted. Moscow would be invited back into the G8 group of industrialized countries, and frozen Russian assets would be pooled in an investment fund, with the United States being given some of the profits. Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed cautious optimism about the U.S. plan.
We have this text. We received it through existing channels of communication with the U.S. administration. I believe it can be used as the basis of a final peaceful settlement, but it has not been discussed with us in detail. And I can guess why. The reason is the same. The U.S. administration has so far failed to secure Ukraine's consent. Ukraine is against it.
The acceleration in U.S. diplomacy comes at a time when Ukrainian troops are on the back foot on the battlefield, and Ukraine has acknowledged Russia is advancing.
Now, moving on, the U.S. President Donald Trump said that peace in the Middle East was achieved thanks to his efforts. Trump said that Middle East has changed. It is not what it was when he took office. The U.S. President also noted that this is happening for the first time in 3,000 years. He also said that Hezbollah has been a big problem in Lebanon and that he was working with the country on the issue, while adding that he wants to see peace in the Middle East. Let's take a listen.
Hezbollah has been a problem in Lebanon, big problem. We're working with Lebanon. We're working with everybody in the Middle East. That's another thing I think we have in common. We want to see peace in the Middle East. And we actually have now, for the first time, peace in the Middle East after 3,000 years. And now we're going to refine it. And I think you're going to see some very positive things happen.
And now it was the first in-person meeting for the political opposites. President Donald Trump and New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani at the Oval Office on Friday. Now, while congratulating Mamdani, Trump described his meeting with the mayor-elect as great and very productive. He said that the two leaders found common ground on several key issues, including housing development and rising food prices. Trump also extended a gesture of goodwill towards Mamdani, suggesting that he may even defy expectations across the political spectrum. Let's listen in.
Well, thank you very much. We've just had a great meeting, a really good, very productive meeting. We have one thing in common. We want this city of ours that we love to do very well. And I wanted to congratulate the mayor. He really ran an incredible race against, a lot of smart people, starting with the early primaries against some very tough people, very smart people. And he beat them easily. And I congratulated him. And we talked about some things in very strong common, like housing and getting housing built, and food and prices, and the price of oil is coming way down. That anything I do is going to be good for New York. If I can get prices down, it's good for New York. But I just want to congratulate. I think you're going to have hopefully a really great mayor. The better he does, the happier I am. I will say there's no difference in party. There's no difference in anything. And we're going to be helping him to make everybody's dream come true, having a strong and very safe New York. And congratulations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Now, standing beside the president, Mamdani also echoed Trump's assessment, describing the discussions as highly productive and focused on urgent cost of living challenges facing New Yorkers. Now, the mayor-elect also added that they discussed issues which are driving residents out of the city, including rising rent, groceries and utilities.
I appreciated the meeting with the president, and as he said, it was a productive meeting focused on a place of shared admiration and love, which is New York City, and the need to deliver affordability to New Yorkers, the 8.5 million people who call our city their home, who are struggling to afford life in the most expensive city in the United States of America. We spoke about rent, we spoke about groceries, we spoke about utilities, we spoke about the different ways in which people are being pushed out, and I appreciated the time with the president, I appreciated the conversation. I look forward to working together to deliver that affordability for New Yorkers.
And on a lighter note, a question was posed to Mamdani on whether he could affirm if he thought Donald Trump was a fascist. And as Mamdani said, I've spoken about Trump, interrupted him. The president said, that's okay, you can just say yes, it's easier than explaining, I don't mind, and then patted Mamdani on the arm.
I want to clarify your answer to Stephen Nelson. He asked about your comment calling the president a fascist, and your answer was, both President Trump and I have been clear about our positions and our views. Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay, you can just say yes.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's easier.
Yes.
It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.